After discovering that my own family had quietly removed my seat from the reunion plans, without even telling me, I took matters into my own hands and cancelled the entire event. Turns out, they didn't expect me to have that kind of power. During my family gathering, my spot was gone. My brother smirked. Oops, must have miscounted. As my mother and the others chuckled. I calmly stated, I suppose I'm not family, and departed. 20 minutes later, they realized I had cancelled everything, the tent, the catering, the entire setup, and their expressions turned ashen. The Hamptons atmosphere clung to my skin like a damp cloth as I stepped onto the Warren property, the briny taste of the Atlantic mingling with the aroma of freshly mown grass. It was July 2024, and the family reunion spread across the lawn, a white canopy glowing under decorative lights, a spread of lobster rolls and champagne, all framed by the ocean's restless sparkle. I hadn't returned in a decade, not since I had distanced myself from their expectations and their wealth. Derek's message had drawn me here, a self-satisfied little note promising a proper Warren reception. I should have anticipated this. The evening meal was the central event, a long table prepared for the family's inner circle, my mother, Patricia, Derek, and a dozen aunts, uncles, and cousins who had spent my youth evaluating me against their gilded benchmarks. I had chosen my finest jacket, a subdued gray one acquired in Austin, thinking it would integrate into their world without seeking validation. As I approached, the conversation hushed, eyes darting my way with that familiar blend of pity and amusement. Patricia, dignified in a cream silk gown, offered a faint smile, her silver hair catching the light. Derek, broad-shouldered and conceited in a navy suit, clapped me on the back a bit too forcefully. "Good to see you, little brother," he said, his tone suggesting the opposite. I scanned the table for my name card, Ethan Warren, the name they had once scorned, and found nothing. No chair, no place setting, just an empty expanse of fabric where I should have been. The realization struck like a blow to the stomach. "Where's my seat?" I inquired, keeping my voice level. Derek glanced at Patricia, then let out a sharp, practiced laugh. "Oops, must have miscounted," he said, shrugging as if it were a harmless error. Patricia's soft, cutting laugh followed, and the table erupted in quiet snickers, my cousin Lila covering her mouth, Uncle Ted shaking his head as if it were a private joke I would never grasp. Heat rose in my neck, but I did not waver. 10 years of their contempt flashed through me, the dropout label, the whispers about my squandered potential. I had returned to see if time had softened them, but here they were, orchestrating my exclusion under the tent's gentle illumination. "I suppose I'm not family anymore," I stated, loud enough for the laughter to falter. Their eyes widened, caught off guard, but I did not wait for explanations. I turned, my loafers sinking into the grass as I headed for the driveway, the ocean roaring in my ears. They had no idea what I had built in the shadows, or what I was about to do. The gravel crunched under my tires as I drove away from the tent, the glow of the reunion fading in my rearview mirror. My chest still burned from that laugh, Derek's. "Oops," Patricia's smirk, but I kept my hands steady on the wheel. They believed they had dismissed me again, just as they had 10 years prior when I had packed a duffel bag and left Connecticut for good. Back then, I was Ethan Warren, the failure who dared to withdraw from Yale, their Ivy League prized possession, because I could not tolerate another lecture about heritage. They called me a dreamer, a quitter, said I would end up waiting tables or worse. I had allowed them to believe it. Tonight proved they still did. I was not that child anymore. After leaving, I had settled in Austin, a city that did not concern itself with your surname or your trust fund. I had rented a room above a taco establishment, the kind with peeling paint and a window that rattled in the wind, and launched Horizon Tech with nothing but a used laptop and an intuition. Logistics software, mundane to most, but I recognized a void, small companies overwhelmed by shipping disarray, no one offering affordable solutions. I coded the initial version myself, nights blending into mornings, fueled by strong coffee and the memory of Patricia's voice telling me I would never amount to anything. 2 years in, I had a prototype. For years, a client roster. By 2024, Horizon was valued at $150 million, a quiet powerhouse moving goods across the nation, while I remained out of the public eye. No Forbes features, no LinkedIn boasts, just outcomes. The Warrens never knew. I had kept it that way, evading their infrequent, condescending Christmas greetings. "Hope you're keeping busy, Ethan," and letting them assume I was barely getting by. Why bother correcting them? They had made up their minds long before I left, and I had discovered a peculiar freedom in their ignorance. But when Derek's email landed in my inbox 3 months ago, I could not resist. "Family reunion in the Hamptons," he had written. "Come see what success looks like, little brother. Mother insists." The taunt was evident, but so was the opportunity to see if they had softened, if time had blunted their edges. I had agreed, not out of sentimentality, but curiosity, and perhaps a hint of something I would not admit even to myself. I had managed the arrangements myself, a habit from overseeing Horizon, the catering company from Montauk, the tent rental from Southampton, the staff transported from nearby towns, all booked through my company's network, discreetly channeled through shell accounts so the Warrens would not connect the dots. I had even arrived on a private jet, landing at East Hampton Airport under a gray sky, telling myself it was merely business efficiency. But I had observed their expressions when I arrived Friday afternoon, Patricia's tight-lipped acknowledgement, Derek's overly loud greeting, and felt the familiar chill. They had not changed. If anything, they had intensified their stance. By Saturday morning, I had begun to notice the imperfections. The caterer had cornered me outside the guest house, a lean man named Tony with a clipboard and a frown. "Your brother said the deposit's coming Monday," he had mumbled. "Is that true?" I had shrugged, feigning ignorance, but my gut tightened. Later, I had overheard Derek on the phone by the pool, his voice low, intense. "Just stall them, okay? We'll sort it out." Sort what out? I had wondered, but kept my distance, sipping a beer and watching the cousins toss a football as if nothing were amiss. Then came the text, an old friend from prep school, now a Wall Street analyst, who had heard whispers. "Warren Investments is losing money. Still involved with them?" I typed back a quick "No," but the pieces were falling into place. That afternoon, I had explored the estate, the expansive lawns and cedar-shingled mansion, a monument to their pride. The place had not changed, same oil paintings of stern ancestors, same crystal chandeliers, but it felt fragile, like a stage ready to collapse. I had passed Patricia in the hall, her heels clicking on the hardwood. And she had paused just long enough to say, "Nice of you to join us, Ethan. Derek's done so well with the firm, hasn't he?" Her eyes challenged me to disagree, but I merely nodded, letting her believe I was still the timid youth she remembered. She did not know I had spent a decade building something grander than their crumbling empire. She did not know I had observed the first signs of their facade unraveling, or that I would be the one to dismantle it. Here's part 3 of I cancelled my family reunion after they took my seat. They never saw it coming. Written in American English with a word count of approximately 1,000 words. This section corresponds to the escalation, betrayal unveiled from the outline, focusing on Ethan uncovering the depth of his family's betrayal and their orchestrated plan to humiliate him, while maintaining logical consistency and introducing fresh content distinct from parts 1 and 2. The sun hung low over the Hamptons by Saturday afternoon, casting lengthy shadows across the estate's undulating lawns. I had spent the morning evading the family's barbs, Lila's. "Still figuring things out, Ethan." Over coffee, Uncle Ted's loud recollection about my Yale debacle during a croquet game I was not invited to join. Each taunt landed like a stone in a pond, rippling through me, but I maintained my composure, nodding along while my mind raced. The missing seat at dinner was not an accident, it was a signal, and I needed to understand their intentions. The first genuine clue emerged at noon. I had slipped into the guest house to retrieve my phone charger, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and sea salt wafting through an open window. Derek's leather briefcase sat on the oak table, its clasp undone, a careless error from a man who had always boasted about his meticulousness. I hesitated, then lifted the flap. Inside, A stack of papers stared back at me. Warren Investments letterhead, red ink scrawled across balance sheets showing 7-figure losses. A memo about discreetly selling the Nantucket property. My heart quickened. This was not merely a difficult quarter. It was a house of cards on the verge of collapse. Then I saw it, a single page, typed and crisp, titled, Reunion Remarks. Derek's handwriting looped in the margin. Perfect spot to cut him loose. It was a script, a speech for tonight's dinner, and my name leaped out halfway down. Ethan had his chances. We've agreed it's time to formally remove him from the trust. A mutual decision, of course. Mutual? I had not agreed to anything. My hands trembled as I took photos with my phone, each click a silent pledge. This was not about a seat. It was a public execution disguised as family business to prevent their guests from asking questions. I shoved the papers back, heart pounding, and stepped onto the porch just as Derek's voice carried from the driveway. He was pacing, phone to his ear, unaware of me in the shadows. Yeah, tonight seals it, he said. Mother's on board. Makes it look like he walked away. Trust ours to restructure. A pause, then a sharp laugh. He's got nothing to fight with. I ducked behind a hydrangea bush, the blossoms brushing my cheek as he strode past, whistling like a man who had already triumphed. The afternoon dragged on, their exclusion tightening like a snare. At a beachside lunch, oysters and prosecco served on a driftwood table, I lingered near the edge, watching Patricia direct the scene. She had pulled Derek aside, their heads bowed together, her diamond earrings gleaming as she whispered something that made him nod sharply. When I approached with a plate, intending to inquire about the menu I had arranged, she waved me off. Oh, Ethan, why don't you check with the staff? You're good at that sort of thing. Derek smirked, adding, Yeah, let the pros handle the family stuff. The cousins snickered, and I retreated, the sand gritty under my shoes, feeling like a phantom they had already dismissed. By late afternoon, I needed fresh air. I wandered to the estate's office, a glass-walled alcove off the main house where Patricia enjoyed playing matriarch. The door was ajar, and her voice spilled out, sharp and authoritative. She was on the phone, her back to me, unaware as I froze behind a bookcase. 12 seats, not 13, she said. No, Ethan won't be staying. Family matter, nothing for you to worry about. The caterer list is final. A pause. He'll leave on his own. We've made sure of it. My blood ran cold. I edged closer, peering through the gap. She hung up, then scribbled a note. Derek, confirm with attorney, trust amendment post-inner, and left it on the desk. I waited until her heels faded down the hall, then slipped in, photographing the note before putting my phone away. The pieces connected, the missing seat, the script, the trust. They were not just cutting me out. They were staging it to appear as my choice, a neat departure to protect their image while they struggled to bolster their failing enterprise. Back outside, the lawn buzzed with pre-dinner preparations, staff arranging flowers I had sourced, setting tables with linens I had booked. I lingered near the tent, blending into the commotion, and overheard Aunt Claire whisper to Lila. Poor Ethan, always the odd one out. Tonight, it'll be a relief for everyone. Relief? My jaw tightened. They had planned this down to the smallest detail, expecting me to slink away, tail between my legs, while they celebrated their victory. I thought of the years I had spent disproving them, every late-night coding, every deal closed, every dollar earned without their assistance, and the irony struck me. They still viewed me as the failure, even as their world crumbled. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple. I retreated to my car, parked behind a row of cedars, and sat in the driver's seat, the leather cool against my back. My phone glowed with the evidence, financial documents, the script, Patricia's note. I could have stormed back in, thrown it in their faces, but that was what they desired, a scene to weave into their narrative. Instead, I opened the Horizon Tech app, my thumb hovering over the vendor dashboard. I had built my life on control, on transforming chaos into order, and they had handed me the perfect leverage. They believed they had sharpened a knife from my back. They did not know I had forged my own blade, and it was about to cut deeper than they could imagine. The cedars loomed dark around my car, their branches swaying in the evening breeze as I sat with the engine off, the Hamptons night settling in. The tent lights flickered through the trees, a beacon of the Warrens' self-satisfied celebration. But my focus was on the phone in my hand. The Horizon Tech app glowed, a dashboard of power they did not realize I possessed. I had booked every element of this reunion, catering, tent, staff, through my company's network, a precaution I had taken out of habit, not foresight. Now it was my weapon. They had orchestrated my departure. I would orchestrate theirs. I began with the caterer, Tony, the man who had complained about Derek's late payment earlier. A few taps canceled the dinner service, rerouting the $20,000 deposit back to Horizon's account. Next, the tent rental, another click, and the crew would pack up by 8 p.m., no questions asked. The bar staff, the dessert truck. The string quartet for Patricia's welcome toast, all undone with a swipe. Each cancellation, a thread pulled from their perfect tapestry. I worked swiftly, my fingers steady despite the surge of adrenaline. Years of logistics had taught me precision. This was just another task, only this time, chaos was the objective. I saved the fireworks for last, a $5,000 display scheduled for Sunday night, the grand finale they boasted about to their guests. I texted the pyrotechnic lead directly. Cancel it. Refunds processed. His reply pinged back. You sure, Mr. Warren? Big hit with the family? I typed. Positive. Family's done celebrating. The irony curved my lips into a faint smile. Within 10 minutes, I dismantled 3 days of their reunion. Every dollar I had advanced flowed back to my accounts. They would feel it soon, mid-toast, mid-bite, mid-laugh, and I would be there to observe. I slipped out of the car, the gravel quiet under my loafers, and circled back to the lawn's edge, staying low behind a hedge. The tent buzzed with activity, guests in pastel dresses and jackets clinking glasses, the murmur of polite conversation. Patricia stood near the table's head, radiant in her silk gown, raising a flute of champagne. Derek flanked her, grinning like a monarch, his tie loosened just enough to signal ease. The script I had found was likely folded in his pocket, ready to dispatch me with a few well-rehearsed lines. I crouched, the damp grass soaking my knees, and waited. Tony arrived first. He strode in from the catering van, apron still tied, his clipboard replaced by a stern expression. He approached Patricia, leaning close, his voice a murmur I could not discern but did not need to. Her flute paused midair, her smile tightening. Derek turned, brow furrowing, and waved over the estate manager, a lean man named Paul who had been evading my questions all weekend. Paul checked his phone, then shook his head, gesturing toward the tent entrance. That was when the crew arrived, 4 men in work boots, rolling up sleeves, dismantling the poles with mechanical efficiency. A ripple of confusion spread. Guests lowered their forks, craning their necks. The bar staff packed up next, boxing liquor bottles as a woman in a sundress protested. We just ordered! Tony reappeared, louder now, addressing Derek directly. Payments reversed, sir. Need a new card if you want us to stay. Derek's face flushed crimson, his hand diving for his wallet, but Patricia grabbed his arm, hissing something sharp. I edged closer, the hedge's thorns snagging my jacket, and caught her words. Not here. Not now. Too late. The quartet unplugged their violins, chairs scraping as they left, and the dessert truck's engine rumbled to life in the driveway. My phone buzzed. Derek's name on the screen. Ethan, where the hell are you? Fix this. I silenced it, then another. This isn't funny. Call me. I did not. The tent's center pole came down, fabric sagging like a deflated balloon, and guests stood clutching purses and muttering. Patricia's voice cut through, shrill and desperate. There's a misunderstanding. Stay seated. But the staff kept moving, loyal to the contracts I had signed, not her commands. I sent Tony a text. Tell them the account holder cancelled. Show the email. He nodded from across the lawn, professional courtesy from a man I tipped well on past jobs, and handed Derek a tablet. Derek scrolled, his jaw dropping, and Patricia snatched it, her pearls swinging as she read. I had attached proof, my name, Horizon Tech's logo, the payment reversals. Their heads snapped up, scanning the crowd, but I stayed hidden, the night my shield. The chaos bloomed beautifully. Uncle Ted bellowed about incompetence. Lila clutched her husband's arm, whispering furiously, and a guest I did not recognize snapped photos. Tomorrow's gossip fodder. Derek yanked out his phone again, dialing me, his face a mask of fury and panic. I let it ring, then texted back. All deposits returned to Horizon Tech. Your mess now. Enjoy the party. His eyes widened as he read, realization sinking in. He knew I had found their weak spot, not just the reunion, but the cracks they tried to conceal. Patricia dropped the tablet, her hand flying to her mouth, and Derek stormed toward Paul, shouting about fixing this now. The guests milled, some drifting toward their cars, others lingering to watch the Warren facade crumble. I stood, brushing off my knees, and retreated to the diner a mile down the road. Over a cup of burnt coffee, I pictured them scrambling, Derek's bluster, Patricia's forced smile, knowing the real blow was still to come. They had designed this night to bury me, but I had transformed it into their downfall. The weapon was mine now, and I had only just begun to wield it. The diner's neon sign buzzed faintly as I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me while the Hamptons night pressed against the windows. 20 minutes had elapsed since I had pulled the plug on their reunion, and my phone lit up with Derek's fifth call. I let it hum against the Formica table, the vibration a drum roll for what came next. They had experienced their moment of panic, tent down, guests scattering, and now it was time to confront them, not to gloat, but to conclude it. I smoothed my jacket, paid the bill with a crumpled 10, and drove back to the estate, the ocean's roar a steady pulse in my ears. The lawn was a battleground when I arrived. The tent lay in heaps, a skeleton of poles and canvas, while staff hauled crates to vans under floodlights. Guests lingered by their BMWs, headlights cutting through the dusk, their murmurs a low hum of scandal. I parked near the cedars and stepped out, the grass damp under my loafers. The family stood clustered near the wreckage, Patricia rigid, Derek pacing, the others a tableau of shock and anger. I walked toward them, hands in my pockets, my shadow stretching long across the ground. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto me as I approached, a mix of fury, fear, and disbelief. Patricia spoke first, her voice a sharp crack. "Ethan, how dare you destroy this night?" Her pearls gleamed, but her hands trembled, betraying the cracks in her composure. Derek stepped forward, fists clenched, his tie askew. You think this is a game? You've humiliated us." I stopped a few feet away, meeting their gazes, and let the silence stretch until it stung. "Seems I'm not family," I said, my voice steady, echoing the line I had dropped at dinner. "So I'm not responsible for family parties." Patricia's lips parted, but no sound emerged. Derek's face twisted, a snarl forming. "You had no right," he began, but I interrupted him. "I had every right. Every contract, every payment. My name. My company, Horizon Tech. You didn't even know, did you?" Their eyes widened, a flicker of doubt breaking through the rage. I pulled out my phone, flashing the screen, Horizon's logo, the cancellation emails. "While you were scripting my exit, I'd built something big. Bigger than your crumbling empire. And I've got the receipts, your losses, your offshore accounts, your lies." Patricia's hand flew to her chest, a gasp escaping. Derek froze, his bravado draining as the weight landed. "You're bluffing," he muttered, but his voice cracked. I smiled, small and cold. "Try me. The SEC might like a look too." Aunt Claire whimpered. Lila glared, but no one spoke. They had planned to bury me in front of their world. I buried them instead, and the audience was still here, watching from the sidelines. Derek lunged, a half-step of desperation, but I sidestepped, calm as stone. "You'll regret this," he spat. "We'll sue you into the ground." I tilted my head. "With what? Your maxed-out credit? Your mortgaged properties?" Go ahead. I've got lawyers who'd love the challenge. Their faces paled, the truth sinking in like salt in a wound. I turned ready to leave, but Patricia's voice stopped me, softer now, pleading. Ethan, wait! We can fix this. Come inside. Talk. I looked back, her eyes glistening, but I saw the trap, another script, another play to save face. No, I said, final as a door slamming. You made your choice. Live with it. I walked away, the silence louder than the ocean, my steps steady on the gravel. Derek shouted after me. You're nothing without us. But it faded into the wind. I climbed into my car, the engine purring to life, and drove off, the estate shrinking in the mirror. They had sharpened a knife from my back. I turned it on them, and the cut was clean. I was done. Here's part 6 of. I cancelled my family reunion after they took my seat. They never saw it coming. Written in American English with a word count of approximately 500 words. This section corresponds to resolution, aftermath, and liberation from the outline, focusing on the aftermath of Ethan's actions and his newfound freedom, while maintaining logical consistency and introducing fresh content distinct from parts 1 through 5. I awoke the next morning in a Montauk motel, the inexpensive sheets rough but my own, the hum of the air conditioner muffling the Hamptons' echoes. Sunlight streamed through a cracked blind, and I checked my phone, missed calls from Derek, a dozen messages from Patricia ranging from threats to pleas, all unanswered. I had driven directly from the estate, the night's adrenaline fading into a quiet determination. By noon, whispers reached the local grapevine. The Warrens had settled the catering bill with Patricia's sapphire brooch, a family heirloom, after their cards were declined.